forever. Hey, good morning. We were wondering if we're going to go live or not. This thing took a long time this morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Smart Life Club. You are on the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel. Today, I have an exciting guest. We are going to rock your world. This is Ryan McShane. We pulled him out of the closet and brought him on the show with us today. And we are so glad you're going to be joining us. Listen, if you're new here, put your name down here. We want to know you and get to see you and be with you. Hey, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. All right. It is going to be a fun morning. It is. We're going to have a really great time. Thank you for being here, Risa. Thank you, Robin. Good morning, Vickie and Ryan. Great to see you both. Thank you. Who with this Facebook user? Now, this is an easier day for me. See, because Ryan is here with me on camera. So this has got to be Anna. Do me a favor and let me know who you are. Hi, Ryan. Everybody's popping up saying there. I know it's really cool. Listen. We go live Monday through Friday, and we share boy, I almost cussed there, didn't I? We share tips, tools, techniques, motivation, inspiration. We get to have all kinds of fun. Do me a favor. Somebody tell me, who is this? Hey, Vickie Helm. Hey back. Nice to see you. Today, I want to take a few moments to tell you about Ryan. And now this is so, thank you. Ha ha ha. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I see you boating on right now. Thank you for being here. Ryan and I, we have a certain love in our conversations. We talk about a certain topic all the time. We really like it. And we think a lot alike there. But what you don't know about Ryan is that he is an HR expert. Now, a lot of people think, well, HR, how boring. No, not the way he does it. And what we're looking at right now is helping people. I told you we would only bring guests on Wednesday who were helping everyone in this post-pandemic world, or now we're in the pandemic world, but in the post-pandemic world, what's it going to be like? What do you need to know? How do you need to get ahead? What can you do, or how do you know how to create income inside your home and in other ways? And we're going to be talking about that today with Ryan. Ryan, welcome to the Coffee Break Show. I'm so excited you're here today.
It is such an honor and a pleasure to be here, Vickie. As someone who's been watching the show as long as I have and participating as much as I can, to be on the show with you is just such a great honor, and I'm so excited to be here and share with your guests as well, because I think what we're going to be talking about has some very important messages, no matter where you are in life, no matter what stage you are in life. And no matter your profession or your career, this is not industry specific what we're going to be talking about, but so much of what we face is common to all of us. So I love the fact that you have created such a wonderful forum for growth and connection. And this enables just that, is growth and connection. So to be a part of that, once again, is a real privilege.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited that you're here, because I kind of want to just a state of the union right now. If we're talking about the industry of work, if we're talking about what's happening in the work world, could you give us like a synopsis of what are the three biggest changes right now that are going on? What are the three biggest changes in your industry?
Well, certainly the number of unemployment is a big issue. The remote learning aspect of this. And then I think culture always has to be one of the top issues that we're focusing on and considering in work. Recently, I heard HR professionals talking about whether or not you should put the fact that you participated in protests on your resume.
Wow. Why is that?
You know, I believe the philosophy of that person who is recommending that people do assert that information on their resume is that it shares an ideology that you may have, that you're involved in community engagement and civic engagement issues.
Yes.
I think it's really to the eye of the beholder. In terms of how that person views what activities are going on. Are you peacefully protesting, or are you a part of the looting and rioting? And how does your politics play into your professional role? I think that's a slippery slope. I met with someone this morning who, as the leader of his organization, he was telling me how he had to address a lot of issues where the community was bringing up that some of his colleagues were putting political information online. And he
Wow.
just very simply said, I'm exhausted from having to address these kind of issues. And I had to very simply put an edict out that, your opinions don't matter. And I really would appreciate if you didn't share them on social media because of how it affects us as an organization. So
Yeah.
there's so much polarity, and we've been talking about this before, Vickie. There's so
Yeah.
much polarity out there right now that just by and large, sharing our opinions in one perspective or another is going to draw criticism into us. And really,
Mhm.
is that the most important thing right now? Is that the hill that we want to die on, so to speak? Or are there more important things that we need to really focus on? And that's really where I'd like to stay focused today is talking about what's going to be critical to businesses moving forward.
Yes, yes, yes. And Ryan, I just want to go back and talk about the asking of that question. Those people who are, is there a legality about the ability to ask that question? Or is there, because I know that you can't ask about age
Right.
or sexual orientation or something like that. And is there a legality about that saying, were you a protester or not? Is that in
There
there?
are there
What?
are there are protections for political affiliation that you cannot be discriminated based on your political affiliation. Um, Otherwise, we're talking about businesses that create and draft their own communication and internet philosophy and policy. And so that should, by and large, guide what a business and an organization is doing. To be asking people about their political affiliation or
Yeah.
their perspective is irrelevant to the performance of the job unless they're performing a political role.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
in human resources, there's an acronym that we go by. It's BFOQ. And this is one of those 25-cent terms, bona fide occupational qualification. If it has nothing to do with being a bona fide occupational qualification, you shouldn't be asking that question in an interview setting.
Interesting. Had no idea. Some of those things we have to know because sometimes we think, well, if I don't answer this question, then, I won't get the job or where's that rights go? Thank you for that.
You
So
bet.
I want to go on to the next part of the conversation that you wanted to talk about because I think both of them are interesting. And what's happening is in the changes in the world of work right now, that is the utmost important because we just now have, what do we have, like close to 40 million people unemployed right
Yes.
now. And that means, and I think there's, even with those amount of people, I think the job markets over the next decade, the worker is going to be shrinking. There's not going to be a lot of workers. There's going to be a lot of work from home. There's going to be a lot of new implementations and things. And I want to go over all of them. Tell
Yep.
me as much as you want to tell me, because I think that needs to be out there for people to make decisions by what do we want to do. So
Indeed.
you know what I mean? Do you get the question I'm asking?
I think so. Um, and what I see happening right now, to explain a little bit about what I do, when I'm not working with businesses and business owners in the capacity of HR and business consultation, as well as training and leadership development, I also support persons in career transition. So I
Mhm.
do a lot of resume writing. And thankfully, I'm diversified enough that I'm able to do that because I had March, April, and May chock full of trainings that absolutely disappeared, completely disappeared. And if it wasn't for resume writing, I would have no income whatsoever coming in. And so thankfully, I'm able to be the hand that meets the extended hand looking for help and looking for support. And there are so many people out there that are looking for that support right now. A lot of businesses are concerned about how they're going to come back. We've talked
Yeah.
about it before. There's Twitter had announced to all their employees that they're going all remote. So a lot of businesses are starting to take a chapter from that and saying, to what extent can we make sure that our employees don't have to come into a physical location? Can we
Yeah.
get them to work remotely? It's very ironic because being in HR for 20 plus years, 15 years ago, HR professionals were beating their chest saying, we can have remote learning, we can, or remote,
Yes.
we
Yes.
we can have virtual kind of meetings. Why aren't we doing these kind of things? It would save the business tremendous amounts of money in real estate. Oh no, if I don't see you sitting at that desk, you're not working. It's funny that, this pandemic has caused a real shift in their perspective of, I
Yeah.
don't
And
have to see you sitting at your
I
desk.
think the issue for that was productivity. They thought if you weren't in the building where they could spy on you, that
Yes.
productivity would go down. And do you know, how is the remote working? And the other thing that you just mentioned, are there sectors or industries where remote workers are being hired more do you know if there are particular industries people should look at and say, well, if you want to be a remote worker, you could do they do like IT from home, or what is it what are the industries that are popping for remote
Well,
workers?
we're finding that technically based jobs lend themselves much more so to remote work. It's obvious that physical services and the like don't lend themselves to that kind of
Hmm.
work. So you're seeing a real spike in technology based jobs where remote work is becoming par for the course. And
Yeah.
a lot of organizations are doing it. But you look across most industries, and the computer is at the end of our fingertips, and it enables us to do so much more than we had before.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the requirement where people come together physically that is limited by this particular issue. But this brings about a whole different set of challenges. I think that there are blessings in this, and wonderful blessings in
I
this,
agree.
and opportunities that exist. Now it calls upon leaders and managers and organizations to be focused on the merit of the issue. It's not whether you're sitting at that desk, it's what you're producing, it's what you're
Yes,
contributing. It's the impact that you have that is
that's
most
right.
important. So let's focus on what we're measuring, because I swear there were jobs that I had where I could have walked up and down the hallway with a clipboard looking pissed off all day, and people would have been like, man, look at him go. He is busy. Let him go. Don't bother him.
Ryan, I have to tell you this story. Back in my past life, when I first graduated college, I did a degree in accounting, and I worked for like 3 months for Arthur Anderson. And I thought, no, I can't do this. This is just lacerating my soul. I was doing like
Mhm.
oil and gas accounting. It was terrible, and it was way back in 19. So anyway, uh, there was a point where I got a contract job with the government, and it was in an accounting department, and it was supposed to be like a 12-week gig. It was just a small gig. And I went in there, and I remember sitting down at the desk, and I was given this big manual. It was just like 3 encyclopedias put together, and they were like, you need to read this. That's your sole job.
Yep.
So I read the whole manual, and it's like, oh, the government, everything, because there's codes and this and that and the other. And I went back and I said, okay, I've read this. And they're like, great, great. And they had me sit in that cubicle. I did nothing, nothing. I was paid to do nothing. And about the 10th, maybe 6th week, I finally came in. I had read books, I'd listened to CDs, and I was like, why am I here? And they said, well, because if I don't use this money, then they'll cut my budget next year. So I was like, that was such an enlightening moment and I was in my 20s. So it was an enlightening moment for me. And I was like, oh, this is a big look at the world.
Yeah.
And now productivity is a big deal, and what you bring to the table and why you're there. It's such an important piece that you just brought there, because workers are trained that they can be, it's like sometimes you work at a job that actually needs you and needs production. And sometimes you work at a job where you're just sitting there to make a quota happen. They don't even want you. They want you to touch your systems. Is that crazy or what?
It is. And you bring up a point that is a real epidemic that HR professionals have been trying to address over the years, is this hire 'em and forget 'em type of mindset. You spend so much time up front. You do the job posting, you write the job description, you do all the screening, all the interviewing. You finally make your selection. You put them through background tests. You put them through drug tests. And now it's their first day on the job, and we're going to throw them a manual and say, good luck.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And when you consider the fact that most turnover that exists in an organization happens within the first 6 months, wouldn't you want to protect your investment? You just put out all this money to bring me in. Why wouldn't you want to develop me, orient me, onboard me, train me, and make sure that I'm able to hit the ground running and be impactful? But that's not what's happening, because we've been lulled into, oh, we never did that before, or we've always done it this way. And those mindsets continue to perpetuate the same results, as we know.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because you said something earlier that I thought was, we have so many people talking right now. There's so many people. Okay, you guys, I promise I'm going to get to you right now. Let's see. Oh my God, you guys, we left off at this. That's where we left off. And then we're going to go to here. Thank you for this. Thank you for this. And then we are going to go to here because Risa had something she wanted to say. The family who digs for beautiful geodes in my area, also they small gem rocks. I don't know. This is in there. They're doing a great job with their business selling rocks. People like me. All right. That's good. I'm not sure where where that fit into the conversation. Oh yes. Here it is on creating online businesses. You guys, we just kept talking and I just forgot you guys. I'm so sorry. It's bad. What was the true 20 years ago is not today. So what is truly true then? Yes. So I want to pop over here and go, though there are more instances of a remote healthcare because telehealth is really taken off. That's true. We're going to see that. This here, my stepson owns a cleaning business called Hard Clean in Chihuahua, Mexico, and he's busy now because of the COVID. Right now, he is cleaning a big medical outfit. Wow. Like this, my nephew remote works from his home in the Sea of Cortez and had his best year in 20 years with the company he works for. Boom. God, I really like that. That's the promise of having a little more freedom and income and still being able to do it. I used to be one of those people who felt you had to have a face-to-face meeting, to ensure relationships and read the body language. Remote meetings are so common now. We build relationships online. And I can see the body language and facial expression matterly. That's a good one. Yes, you're right. This would be the ultimate freedom. Oh, you guys are going so fast. Just a minute. Here we go. I'm not sure who this is. My business of selling motorcycles was #1 in online motorcycle sales for the month of April in our region of 20 dealers. By appointment only, our sales force worked online from home. Mind-blowing. Yes, this is coming up right now, but let me ask you while you're here, was your productivity, it's like it was up, your productivity was up, sales for the month of April by appointment only? That's just amazing. No longer wasting time between appointments creates a huge increase in efficiency. I agree with that as well. People who are finding what works for them. I agree. This whole new world we have of this remote world of working, this is our future, isn't it? I love what you said, Ryan. When I direct therapy teams, I get gobs of time in orientation and had the best retention rate in the company history. Thank you. That's right. She did. She rocks. Maybe that's why they're talking about geodes. Fit in, Vickie Helm. On the online sales is how the geos fit in, Vickie. Thank you. Thank you for helping me. Anyway, so I want to go back to the conversation now. I caught up with you guys. I'm sorry. I won't do that again. I'll stop myself and leave these comments coming up. but I want to go back to the remote workers like we were talking, and I want to go back to the remote employer. And there's a couple of things there. The biggest gap for me, Ryan, is if I were one of those 40 million people being laid off and I decided, okay, I need to be a remote worker, I'd want to pick an industry that was helpful and good and made a difference for me, and it would allow work. Like I think if you work from home, does it have to be 9 to 5 or whenever you choose your hours, around the world? And what about remote workers that are cross continent? Do we have like a system if you have a remote worker that are like, say, in the UK and the United States, or maybe Australia, and in your country where there's remote workers, and you're a business owner now that's kind of open 24 hours a day because you have remote workers in countries everywhere. Because I know for me, I have foreign partners and I have foreign workers, and the time zones, like that, the time zone change can be rough on a company. And I'm wondering, as a business owner, what can you do to help solve that? And as a employee who is a new employee who is looking for a career change, what would you guide them to do? Give them 3 things. I've asked 2 questions, but one for the employer and one for the employee.
Yeah, as far as the remote worker component, I look at this as being geographically dispersed. And there's a lot of businesses that are geographically dispersed. So whether they're remote or just in another state, because that's where their business also operates, it still calls upon leaders to be focused on the right things. What are the key performance indicators that demonstrate success? Well, that should be aligned to the overall purpose or vision or mission of the organization. And that should come down and translate to each level within the organization, that they have key performance indicators that they need to appeal to. And so this points out the fact that the working in the physical space, I think we have abused that in some respects, and we've taken our time to go down the hall and talk with Mary and see what John's doing, and you know what, I'm networking, so it's okay, but what are we really doing? How much are we actually accomplishing? And I see that a lot of people I've spoken with said we've been more productive than ever as a result of going to the remote working. And I think that's because they have good standards in place, they have good goals in place, and they have good communication in place. It's the organizations that never had those things to begin with that continue to suffer. And now they're trying to wrap their arms around this and say, how are we going to manage going forward? Well, you need to go back to the drawing board and ask, why are we here? What are we trying to accomplish? And what does each role do according to trying to accomplish this? It needs to be well communicated, it needs to be continuously reinforced, and it needs to be supported with motivational and engaging activities. None of that goes away by doing it remotely. In fact, I think it commands us to be a little more targeted and on point.
That was like the most beautiful thing you just said. Our COO of our company she's so good. We use Monday.com, and Monday.com and the system we use together allows accountability to be across the board. It's where do you need help, what's being delivered, etc. And I think the thing that you said that is, if you've never really had that in your company to start, and I know that I've experienced that as well. I've opened my doors and my business has exploded. It exploded so big, I didn't have time to get people on board. There were all kinds of issues that we had, and we were just working insanely. It took 2 years to get those little accountability pieces in. And so when we started this particular company, and from then on, I make those particular things very specific, because if you blow up when the doors open, you have to know what you're doing. And nobody, Nobody expects their doors to open and them to just go kaboom. There's a bunch of people. They all plan for medium growth at max. They're like, here's small growth, medium growth. We don't just go zoom. And that happens. And you have to have a plan for each one. I like the way Monday works, and accountability systems are now online. They're software systems now that you can put in place to help create that. I just want to go over here again. Pop over here, remote. Be it next door or across the ocean makes what was impossible possible. Team building takes a whole new meaning. And I want to say, is there a way we can talk about this? Because Ryan, I think this is important. Team building online. It's not like you now where you, in the past, where you'd like, hey, let's go out to dinner and we bond over dinner. Now it's completely different. We have 5 different countries. How do we bond on that? And how do you team build remotely?
It's a great question. And of course it comes from Scott. So that's wonderful. Good stuff, Scott. So the stages of team formation are such that we need to continue to hold them up. Because no matter what is happening, where this team formation is happening, the stages stay the same. We have forming, we have storming, we have norming, and then finally performing. So forming, storming, norming, and performing. No matter if you're in a physical location, with other people or remotely, we need to appeal to those stages. How are we coming together as a team? Okay. The storming component is all the egos and the personalities vying for power positions and plays and to be heard and things of that nature. And that eventually shakes out. And then we start norming and we start figuring out how to best work with Vickie and how to best work with Scott and how to best work with Karen and all of that. And so that's where we start getting into the norming stage. And once we've done that, now we can start really flowing. And that's where the performing takes place.
Yes.
So regardless of where you are, I think leaders are well served to address each one of those stages of the team formation and realize every time an external something occurs or a new person is added to that team, even if you were at the performing stage, it takes you back to the storming phase.
Wow.
So let's say you have a new policy or procedure, or let's say you have a new team member. Both can be equally disruptive to the team formation and performance. And so it throws the team back into the storming stage. And again, we jockey and go back and forth. So what a leader's call is to move people back through those stages as quickly as possible.
Beautiful.
Because it's that quickness that's going to ensure efficacy and performance.
Wow. That's so important to hear. First off, I co-lead a company, this one, with someone. And I think that leadership point was profound for me. And I want to thank you for that. That was something that was really important as far as leaders go. And moving them through the 4 stages and coming back as you add in the fold or somebody leaves the fold and things get readjusted in that way. And what happens when we make a culture like this, because I want to pop this one up. It's similar, but yet different. Remote is anywhere. Now, how do we build efficient functioning teams? And I think that could you go over the 4 of them? The storming,
norming,
performing. Can somebody write that down? Vickie needs that. That was really key. So I like this. You're right, Scott. Team building can be very successful. You need to accept that it's not the way it is before. And I want to tell you something. This is very key. This is very key to the leader. This right here, when I met with my partners and I sat down with them, I was like, we're where we've never been before. I've never been through this. I'm going to try to go through this the best I can. I'm going to ask for some forgiveness and some slack and some leeway as I figure out how we're going to create this firm and make it completely different. Normally, because what's interesting for us, Ryan, is we have a broadcasting and media company. And we have aspects of the broadcast and media company, but we want to do it live. We want to do it live because mainstream media likes to bend and twist the story by editing it and, you know, making it on the backside and putting it up there. If it's live, there's no making your words sound bad or twisting what you're saying, or, you know what I mean? It's live.
Yes.
Everybody heard it.
Yeah.
And so I think the live component is one of the things that's going to change how media acts. And so we also want to bring in media that works. We want to stop talking about the problem, and our media company wants to talk about what solutions are there for you that you can take advantage of, which is why you're on the show with us today. Mm-hmm. And in that part of it, when we get to this point, we have a tendency to fall back on our past systems. Yeah. So what the biggest thing for me, Ryan, is when you're leading a company, and this is happening right now, when you're leading in that way, you cannot fall back on past premises. You have to look forward and say, this is completely new. I'm a leader. The expectations I had inside the building with the gray cubicle for you cannot be the expectations. I have to have new values, new looks, new accountability, and you have to think in a new way. And the issue with thinking in that new way is not always that you understand what the future holds. Because right now we're kind of sitting in this big pile of uncertainty. We don't know if there's going to be another lockdown. We don't know what we don't know. But I find that if we can work remotely and we can get a team effective, and that's why that 4 things you just did, the storming, forming, storming, norming. I got to get that 4th one, norming, performing. Getting to the place where there's performance, and really quality performance, means that everyone on the team has to know everything. It's like there's a level of transparency, I think, that needs to happen now with company owners and CEOs. And I want you to kind of speak to that. I'm like, that new mindset that you need to have in order to bring these new working environments together and making them work, and how they have to think for that. And I was wondering if you could share your opinion with that.
Well, I do want to share in the fact that I've long felt and have upheld this ideology: be easy on people, but strict on values and principles.
Interesting.
And if you do that, that enables us to make sure that we're not operating based on principles at the helm. And all too often, where we hear things like, oh, we've always done it that way, has been derived from the personality of the leader at the helm at the time. Why do we do it this way? Well, I don't know, because John, who was our president 20 years ago, said that this is the way he wanted us to do it. Well, why are we still doing it 20 years later? John's long gone. He's retired. Mm-hmm. Well, you're right, because we've been conditioned to think in that modality. Yeah. But if we have principles and our values and our vision or purpose as our guideposts, then it's not subject to the differentiation of personality at the helm at any given time. And so we've got to look at that to be our guidelines, not the egos and the personalities of leaders at that particular time. I think that's really important for organizations to understand. You know, we know that a great accolade for a leader is to be able to walk away from that organization and then still operate at a high level. So it's not a matter of having the leader there to give permission continuously to be able to do their job. Mm-hmm. You set the principles, you set the guidelines, you set the values, you set the purpose and the target, and let them go for it. And get the support to enable that to happen. And that really speaks to engagement. And I think it's important to talk about the criticality of engagement. Engagement, for those of you that aren't necessarily familiar with that term, it's the extra discretionary energy you choose to share with your business based on being so enthralled with what the work is that you're doing.
Yes.
And so we have an
Love
epidemic
what you do.
in businesses and in leadership right now with disengagement. To such an
Yeah.
extent, 60 to 70% of our total workforce population is disengaged. So
Wow.
what does that mean, Vickie? What does that mean when 60 to 70% of our
Yeah.
total workforce population is engaged? Something's really broken.
Yeah.
But even bigger than that, what that means is the employers who are paying those disengaged employees aren't getting what they're paying for, because that employee is only doing just enough to get by without getting in trouble and
Yep.
getting fired. So they're just doing the status quo or the minimum required. That's not engagement. Engagement is above and beyond at that discretionary energy. And so with 60 to 70% of our total workforce disengaged, that only leaves a small portion that is actually engaged in what they're doing. What's even scarier is there's something called actively disengaged employees. There's disengagement and there's active disengagement.
Wow.
Those people that are actively disengaged are literally being paid by their employer to sabotage their employer.
Wow.
Those numbers look like 15% of the organization.
Wow.
So that leaves about 5 to 10%, give or take, that are actively engaged. These are your top performers in your organization that are willing to go above and beyond to serve the customer, to meet their goals, to support a colleague and coworker.
Wow.
And so when you look at those statistics and you look at those numbers, you know that businesses aren't getting what they're paying for, and employees don't feel empowered. They feel like they have to ask permission for everything. So
Yeah.
now they're sitting back and saying, just tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. And
Yep.
I've literally had people tell me that before, where I ask them, what are your thoughts? What are your ideas? What is it? Ryan, I appreciate your asking, but just tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. It just takes so much less energy. Well,
Yeah.
gee, that's not why I hired you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like this right here. They're lacking the inspiration to be fully engaged in their employer's desired outcomes.
Yep.
Why? That's so important right now. If we take a look at that why, if we take a look at what's going on, and it's interesting because I've had like several businesses, and the interesting thing that you're talking about right now is very, very important, because I think disengaged, to anybody who's disengaged, who's not inspired by working for you or working with you, needs to be dismissed. But I
Yep.
think the attitude of the business owner is part of the inspiration. I think people want to work with people they are proud of. Could you imagine? It's like, hi, I work for Oprah Winfrey. It doesn't matter if you are the car parker. I park the cars for Oprah Winfrey. I mean, there's some pride about working and saying, I work for Apple. I work for Steve Jobs. I work for. You get to the point where you are inspired by the inspiration of the leader. What is the leader trying to do?
Mhm.
In our company, we have a lot of absolute value bombs that are just there. One of them is that whatever we start changes the world. If it doesn't change the world, it's too small for us. It's just too small thinking. The other thing we talk about is that no burden in your company is ever too heavy if everyone lifts. And that's the thing right there. No burden is too heavy if everyone lifts. We are an everyone team with an everyone on, everyone. And my my co-CEO of this company, she's really awesome. You've met Tracy, right? Tracy Wilson. She's the co-CEO of this particular company, and she's very tribal. Everybody goes with us. Everybody's coming on, and we make sure that everybody's in there. And the other thing is, we spend time hiring talent. We
Yes.
spend time partnering with talent. And when I partner with talent, only talent shows up. And if you have those places in there, it's like the mindset of what you're doing has to shift. People have to be inspired. They have to be proud of the CEO. If you're a hothead boss, you're a jerk. Nobody wants to work for you. If you're somebody who's like one of those belittling bosses or belittling managers, you're a jerk. Nobody wants to work for you. And that whole future, your future has died right now because that pyramid is dead.
Yeah.
And workers right now, workers are very aware of who they want to work for, why they want to work for. And I think that the employee-employer vision, that thing is going to be shifting with remote work. And I'm wondering, do you have an idea, like, how is it going to be shifting? In what ways are employees more empowered now? Because we talk about how disempowered they are. In what ways are they empowered right now? I know that working from home, I think, is empowering. And, tele industries are empowering. And I love this. They must be proud of their mission. Full stop. If they're not proud of the mission, why are they there? And that means, for me, I want to know if you think conscious business is going to rise up, or is it going to be a lot of the same old corporate business that is up?
Yeah, I do think that it is going to rise. But, speaking to the empowerment and how we enable that empowerment, it comes down to permissions. Culturally speaking, what an organization does and how it interacts with their stakeholders is largely predicated on permissions of the leadership or permissions of the policies and procedures. And so I think that's important to understand what you're permitted to do. And that can occur in a myriad of ways. One thing I used to do working in the corporate HR environment years ago, before I launched my own consulting business, is I instituted their onboarding and orientation process. And one exercise I did during their orientation was a vision exercise. And I would ask them to draw, engaging their right brain a little bit, draw their ideal work environment. And so invariably I would get pictures of people working where there was windows and there was sun coming through the windows, and they were working in a circle and they were connected to their coworkers. So what you start to accumulate from doing this exercise over and over the years is there's a great deal of consistency in terms of what are people looking for in their work experience. And I think it's incumbent upon leaders to think about that. I think all too often the communication or direction has been one way instead of two ways. And that's that employer-employee relationship that you're talking about, and I think is continuously being redefined and will continuously be redefined as a result of this remote working. Because I think engagement has to take on a different flavor because it is remote, it is virtual. So identifying with the individual, what is it that you value the most? What is it that you want to get out of this experience? And how can we, as your organization, your administration, your leaders, make sure you get that? Because we value you enough to, number one, ask the question. Number two, to try to follow through to make sure that you're well supported. I think that this is the golden opportunity that we are faced by this crisis and this pandemic. Is what can we do to make sure we value you as an employee? What can we do to make sure that you're continuously engaged and supported in what you're doing? That it's not just lip service. Do you need better ergonomics? Do you need, a better connectivity? Do you need, coaching calls on a regular basis? You used to just slip down to my office, whenever you had a question. Maybe we need to set up, an hour-long phone call every week type of thing. Again, I think this enables us to focus on the merit of the issue at hand and what's truly important. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
There's so many rabbit holes I could go down, Vickie.
I know. And it's so fascinating for me. It's so fascinating because I've been an employee and I've been an employee in the past world that has collapsed. And I hated it. I just, there's too much creativity, too much freedom that I need to have. And I think going forward, it's like when we are employers, when we get to be employers and we're in this new particular, venue that we are, and my plans are far off and big future and big things, because that's the way I think and live. And I want to be able to honor where employees are and what's important to them. Because right now, what used to be important or in the past was important might be shifting. So the cool thing about remote working is if you want to live in your dream place, now you can. You don't have to live in that big city. You can move. Like I'm 8,100 feet up in the mountains, very remote, very, very rural. This is how I like to live. I like my freedom. I like my work to be able to travel with me. So if the work can travel with me, et cetera, and I could make an environment that made the perks of working with my particular company give you inspiration, give you a quality of life that an office building didn't. Now, the office building's quality of life is you have routine. You can live Groundhog Day every single day. You just get up at go 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5. But what if in that remote work life, you could go at 3 o'clock to your son's baseball game and be there at your son's baseball game or your daughter's volleyball game and live connected, do the same work. And instead of having the 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5. Now I know there are some jobs that are like, well, no, there is any kind of job could be able to fit into that. Yeah. My point is the quality of life that you can have is now shifting. I want my people to be, I want the people that I team up with to have the quality of life that makes them happy, the family time without, hi, I need a vacation here. And I want them to live at a career in a life in a way that they do not have to. I think the untraining part of this is my point, Ryan. It's like, you're untraining the leaders, you're untraining the workers, you're untraining them from all of that past. And it's the untraining thing that is going to be able to allow us to spread our wings and offer things that are meaningful to employees that help them feel inspired, loved, noticed, cared about, and totally on board with you. And that when they do work, that will shift that disengagement that you were talking about. This becomes part of something that gives them quality of life and not, oh God, I can't stand being here from 9 to 5. I want to just stop for a second. This is a big one. It covers us up. When our team was looking for a new team member, we used to have a quick team powwow to vision what we wanted in that new person. How did we feel when they were around? How does that interact with us and our patients and other interdisciplinary staff? What special skills did they have? It was powerful, and we always received exactly what we envisioned. That's amazing.
I love that, Robin. I think that's outstanding. And if you don't set the intention of what you desire, then any old thing might seem acceptable.
Yeah.
I love that approach. And
I do too.
I know you want to read that, so I'll let you read that. And then
Hubby works from home. We use 70% of our house as a tax write-off. Very cool. Thank you, Risa.
That is great. You know, what I think is important to bring back up, and I think this was alluded to on one of your prior shows, is the psychological impact of what we are facing right now, I believe is generational.
Yes.
The seniors and veterans dealt with World War II. They dealt with the Great Depression. The baby boomers dealt with Vietnam. The Gen Xers dealt with the Challenger crash.
Yep.
The millennials dealt with 9/11.
Yep.
And now Gen Z and the younger generations and my kids are dealing with this pandemic and crisis. And so this is a generational trauma that we don't know how it's going to necessarily manifest in our
Interesting.
psychological makeup as a society. But one thing we do know is it has created a state of being where most people are operating from the lowest common denominator of
Yeah.
survivability.
Yeah.
And when we're operating from that standpoint, we cannot be creative, we cannot think critically, and we
Oh,
cannot be compassionate for our fellow man because it's all about self protection. And so I think it's more important than anything right now that we are working with our leaders to focus on emotional intelligence. And a
yes.
key
Number
factor
one.
of emotional intelligence is empathy. You need to meet people, your employees, where they are to bring them along to where you want them to be.
Mhm.
And that's precisely the kind of or deconditioning that you're talking about, because we are so ensconced in this command and control, do what I tell you because I'm your boss mentality in the corporate environment, that this idea of empathic leadership is very
Yeah.
novel. But truly, we can look at historically and see the organizations that operate at the highest level are led by
Yes.
servant leaders who are there to equip their followers with the resources and support they need to be successful as individual contributors and collectively as an organization. I think that's critical. And moving past that, we need to have a forum for voicing our concerns. We don't process things in a vacuum. We process things by saying, hey, let me talk to you about this. Let me get your perspective about this. Let me get your perspective.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, social media is not the forum for that,
That's
because
true.
anything is derided, is labeled, is
Hmm.
shamed, and it's just not been a constructive format. But a dialogue circle format enables precisely what we're talking about. And dialogue is a communication methodology that's predicated on four very simple principles: listening, respecting, suspending, and voicing. And I'll explain what those are. Listening, as if all the information is within you anyway.
Hmm.
Respecting, so when we're respecting someone and they're talking, we're not planning our grocery list for that night. We're not thinking about what they're saying only for the purpose of responding to it.
That's
We're
right.
letting that new information come in. We're holding space for that person, so we're respecting. The next is suspending. We're suspending judgment. And so our brains
Yes.
want to classify things very quickly because our brains hate uncertainty. Well, what are we dealing with right now? More and more uncertainty. No one knows, from misinformation to disinformation, we
Yeah.
don't know which end is up sometimes.
That's right.
So we need to suspend judgment to allow new information to continue to wash over us. Because to do otherwise, we need overwhelming evidence to the contrary to change our mind once we've already made our mind and already classified something. And then finally, voicing. And we're voicing what's coming up for us. What is it that's most important for us to share in this moment on this topic? Not based on what Vickie said, not based on what
Hmm.
anybody else said. It's what do we feel the most need to share?
Yeah.
And done appropriately, facilitated appropriately, it is a very cathartic experience, and it binds people together as if they've gone through a trauma-based
Yes.
experience together.
Mm. That's beautiful because I want to pop this up because I
Mhm.
think this is the issue. Uncertainty is the word for the year, and to be able to be that emotionally intelligent and be able to bond that thing together, that's how you move forward. And
Yeah.
it's like you have to have that. So say what you were going to say. I saw you weren't finished.
Well, I was just going to say that, we started with the emotional intelligence or the empathic leader. Then we gave a format for processing all this uncertainty and redefining it as an organization. How do we see what's
Yeah.
happening? What are my greatest fears? What are my greatest desires? What am I going to miss about the way we used to be? We need to talk about those kind of things. But in order to make it constructive, we need to plug all of this into adaptive change management philosophy. And that adaptive change management philosophy understands there are different phases of change that we go through. And so the one aspect of change that very few people even recognize is loss.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't address the loss of what was, you can't move forward to what can be.
Yes.
And so we need a grieving period for what has been in order to move forward collectively.
Yeah. You know, when you said that, in my younger years, when in college, I worked at a business that had a really valued leader. We loved him. He was like the good dad that you never had, the great leader. He was stern, but he was just so good. And one day he just fell over with a heart attack. He just died. And to my godsend, we actually all got to go to the funeral and everything else. Our CEO was like, I worked with him for 20 years. He was the man of the moment. And when he died, we were so devastated. And bringing in that peace so that you could go forward. You're right about the grieving piece. And when there's loss, it's not just loss of a purpose. It could be loss of a person, loss of a sense of meaning. When just recently, obviously, you've noticed that we pivoted our company. And Karen and I, who have been working like mad for 24 months, we took on a few new partners, as you guys have noticed, and we made everything different. And I remember having to sit with Karen and talk about grieving this. This was a great idea, but now this pandemic happened. It shifted everything. Here's what I'm noticing, and I want to do this. And that shifting in that moment, we never think there's a loss period of that. And right now, loss is a huge thing. There's a loss of identity, a loss of freedom, a loss of new normal, a loss of, there's people don't even know, they don't have a way of being able to say, this is how my day is. It's just that vastness there. Ryan, you were amazing to speak with today. I'm so blown away. You have no idea, because I run a company and so I have a little investment in this. But I want to know, it's like, if you have a new career, if you're doing something, how do people get a hold of you? How do they get in contact with you and say, look, I need help with my company right now. I need help as I have to get a new career. How do they find you?
Thank you for asking the question. I am on social media. I'm on Facebook under Ryan McShane. I also have a Facebook page for my company, HR Evolution LLC. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to give you my web address. It's www.hrevolutionllc.com. And people are always welcome to email me at rmcshane@hrevolutionllc.com.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to tell you, I think working right now with experts is one of the most important things as we're making these transitions. I have a moment right now, and I want to say this. Ryan's here every day at 10. So if you need to find him, you come to this show and just say, Ryan, I need you. To the Metadime team, you guys are magic. And I don't know if I serve you well enough or not, but you guys are magic and you make magic in the world. And what you're doing is so important. It's important to me that you know that I love you all so much. It just makes me weak. I love you absolutely all. Mm-hmm. Ryan, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for sharing that amazing. I'm so blown away by what you said. Thank you for also being part of the Metadime Digital family. Thank you for being in this group and honoring every day you share your insights. Every day you're out there plugging away, sharing what you know. And I don't know who's going to be watching this video when they need to find out this information. But I am honored that you were so gracious and thank you. This is sweet. Thank you. You were gracious and so talented at what you do. All right, you guys, that was Ryan McShane. Somebody buy this man a beer. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Mwah.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.